Thank you, Charles, and welcome to this Performance Days panel talk. We're going to be talking about the key topic this edition, which is textile to textile recycling specifically and circularity in general. But this talk I'm really excited about because we're going to be adding a new angle that we don't often talk about at Performance Days. This is the creative angle. And the question is, how can creativity unlock circularity? So I'm very happy to have here Andrea Rosso from Diesel, who's head of sustainability, Danielle Hartung right next to me, founder of Hartung Paris, who's a designer. So we have good creative input coming here. And Courtney Samulik from Cirque, and she's in charge of the supply chain. That was a very brief introduction. Now we'll let each speaker introduce themselves maybe more completely and the companies they work for. Andrea.
Ciao, I'm Andrea Rosso. I feel I'm in school actually. Sorry. I work in the sustainability team as a sustainability ambassador for the group, actually, not only for Diesel, for OTB. So this is important now. A new lesson that I have, because before I was in Diesel, now I'm in the OTB. So I get to meet a lot of other people inside this internal big group and to see how to connect them all. Because actually, it's how you connect the people that makes a change. When you come here to this fair, it's the connection that you will have in the future that will make the change. You know, it's not maybe the direct day, but it's in the future how you will be connecting. So that's kind of my job, and I hope to do it in a good way.
Interesting. Thank you for that. Courtney, tell us a bit about Cirque and yourself.
I'm Courtney Samulik. I'm the textile supply chain lead at Cirque. I am the person that helps bridge the gap between brands and supply chain and what you want to do in the textile to textile space. So my background is in brand material development. I've been working with brands for the last 15 years, and this is the first time I've been this far forward in the supply chain, working with a chemical recycler, Cirque. So if you're not familiar with Cirque, we are in the textile to textile next-gen fiber space. We are the only recycler that is recovering both cotton and polyester from cotton poly blends and creating new fibers. So we're creating new recycled polyester from textile waste, and we're also creating new man-made cellulosic fibers from the cotton pulp. Thanks for having me, Sophie.
Yeah, I'm asking for the clicker, please. Oh, it's here. We had a slide for Cirque.
Yeah, there's quite a bit up there. This is the kind of all about Cirque slide, but you can see a little bit of the work we've done. We've launched in major brands like Zara as well as high luxury. We have a network of supply chain partners, a very impressive investment board of industry as well as brands. We're at a demo scale in the US, and we're opening our first commercial facility in 2028 in France.
Thank you. So Danielle, let me see if your slides were added. Yes, there we go.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I run an identity strategy and design company in Paris for more than 25 years. And I work across different fields from luxury to fashion, but also in sports and outdoors for quite a long time. I used to be a tailor, so I work from the ground up, and so I like things well made. And for today's topic, I have been obsessed with sustainability, I think, for 20 years now. And it was very difficult at the time, actually, to talk. So I've learned a lot because we had to start from nothing. And I worked for Nike, and I learned so much there, also about sustainability, how they approach it. And I think my main principle already 20 years that I got taught by Nike, but also by cradle-to-cradle principle, and that made me work for VD at the time, and we made the first ever recyclable outdoor collection.
Very good. So on-the-ground experience there. Let's start with our first topic. So designing for circularity. The first question that comes to my mind is, are aesthetics compatible with sustainability? So do we have to sacrifice something to have cleaner or greener products? I will start with you, Andrea, because I know you work for OTB, and there are many brands in that group, but Diesel, very well known, and it's particularly known for a bold, denim-focused aesthetic. So how do you market circularity to consumers who prioritize trends over longevity?
So the same pair of jeans, you must like it, first of all, to buy. That's one major key, that if you don't like the stuff, man, you don't want to buy. But if you like the stuff, then if you make it within certain way, using recycle, using certain certification, using certain typology of cotton, then it's good for the brand. It's good for what we want to also sell to our consumer. If you try to sell your product because of certain certification, you will fail day one. But thanks to our approach within product, we have a goal to achieve.
Let's give.
We have a goal.
Oh, it's not us.
So we have a goal to achieve a certain aesthetic, and that aesthetic is a must. And that's actually the challenge for all the R&D team, the product team, and of course also with the designer that needs to finalize, mark yes for the product. So I don't think that the consumer should know so much about the reason why, from a sustainability angle, is buying the product, but should definitely know that the product or the company that is buying that product has some way of working that respect the environment or social level.
Yeah, so it's invisible to the consumer in a sense.
Yes.
More or less. Okay.
And also, visible or invisible doesn't really matter, because if you have a way to show yourself, being explaining what you're doing in a very easy way to understand, then it's okay. But it's a plus. But
right.
first of all, the product must be beautiful.
Exactly. Okay. Danielle, can you tell us how you integrate sustainability into your design process without compromising performance or style? And can you share examples from your work?
First, I want to add on what Andrea said, and I totally agree, and about aesthetics or attractivity or desirability being the first thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And I had to go through the learning curve myself. Like when I started, as I said, 20 years to discuss about sustainability, we all wanted to shout about it, and we want to all show the world how great this all is. And I think at the time that was not too wrong, because I think there was some education necessary within the industry, within the customers. But I agree, nowadays this should be regarded as second or third step of let's say, to the outside. Now coming back to your question, I think first, when we talk about performance, we have to ask, what's the performance for? Because in the past, it was a very masculine world, and everybody was saying, oh, how is your water column doing? What's your breathability? And it's like driving like a Formula One car in the city. And now, today, you don't drive Formula One car in the city. You drive a small electric car. So the first thing you should ask yourself, what is my performance? And I like to say the right performance for the right need.
Yeah.
So if it's for a Sunday walk, then it's enough to have some rainproof. That's enough. It's
right.
only the last 1% where we are really, let's say, Mount Everest people or marathon people that need extreme performance. So that's the first point. What kind of level of performance are we talking about? The second point is, I think that you have to start from the start. It's like tailoring. It means the first thing you have to discuss is materials and trimmings. And in the past, we would ask probably people, what do you do? And now actually everybody who's around here is actually suggesting us things. And I think aesthetically nowadays you can do nearly everything you want. having the right performance, and I think we are again very free about that.
Interesting point.
So
Yeah.
that's very interesting to learn about that.
Courtney, can you give us your point of view from as a recycler's perspective? What design choices make garments easier to recycle when they arrive at a Circ facility?
That's a great question. I think the main key point that I want to get across today is there was traditionally in the circularity industry, there was this idea that everything had to be a monomaterial. It has to be all polyester, it has to be all cotton. I am happy to say that Circ is the solution for blends. Blends account for 46 million tons of waste annually. We're talking about only 12 million tons of pure poly or pure cotton. That's what we're doing at Circ, is trying to create that change at a mass scale. And what we're doing for brands is trying to make it as seamless as possible. We're creating a fiber that's a like-new fiber. It has the same quality characteristics of a virgin fiber. And it acts like a normal lyocell or a normal polyester. It spins the same way. We want to make it as seamless as possible for brands to introduce textile-to-textile waste into their products. And we have a lot of resources in the supply chain, but we also want to work with brands to incorporate our fiber into their own supply chain. So it's a seamless transition, and it really has the opportunity to scale, and that we're creating products that can be ultimately taken back from brands and put back into our process.
Okay, thank you for that. I wanted to see who in the audience is working on the creative side of product development. Can you raise your hand if you're a creative director, a designer, or a product developer? Oh, pretty good.
That's good, actually.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We need good designs for a better future. So now moving on to topic number 2, recycling textiles to textiles. We're going to look at the hype versus the reality. So I will get to you immediately, Courtney, because you are doing it. So can you describe your technology?
Yeah.
How does it work?
I can.
And
so
both its advantages and limitations, please.
yeah, I would say for us at Circ, we're taking poly cotton blends. We're inputting it into what we call a pressure cooker with clean chemistry, heat, and water. In this pressure cooker, it kind of separates the cellulosic, which is the cotton, from the polyester. The poly becomes a liquor. It's then cleaned of dyes and finishing chemistry. We depolymerize it into TPA and MEG, and then repolymerize it into chip. On the cellulosic side, we're taking the pulp, and we're using that to replace tree pulp in the cellulosic process. So we're focused right now on lyocell in that process, but the applications are there for viscose as well to offset the wood pulp. In terms of limitations of our process, we have a very specific feedstock specifications. There are some printing chemistries and some finishing chemistries that are not kind of applicable in our process right now, but we're staying very in touch with collaborations in pre-processing in chemistry to kind of stay ahead and try to catch the things that are not possible in the process. The one thing that really hurdles to us and all textile-to-textile recyclers out there is elastane. There's still no clear solution for elastane containing materials in the textile-to-textile space.
All right, thanks. Andrea, with regards to the consumers, on the consumer side and the marketing side, do you think that your customers perceive recycled products as being of lower quality, or is that no longer an issue?
But no, the consumer, as I was saying before, buys the product because he likes the product.
Okay.
And when you put that it's recycled, or when you put that there is some action that has been behind in terms of circularity, I'm not sure that is fully understood. But if the product has good quality, durability, longevity, fine, that's okay. Of course, aesthetic. But in any case, The fact is that you always need, as a brand, to guarantee the quality of your product. You know.
Yeah. So it's the brand that serves as the guarantor of
the brand needs to
responsibility.
work behind. Needs to also work on communication.
Okay.
But there is different ways of communicating your product. Every brand have the DNA of the brand. There are boring brand. There are very serious brand. There are also ironic brand. So it doesn't matter. It matters to be faithful to your DNA. So if you want to communicate in a more ironic way, of course you have to be careful of the greenwashing, but you can do that.
Yeah.
And then you get closer to the client, to your client, to fidelize your client within a visual that also reflect their experience of buying your product over and over. So somehow you find a way to fidelize your clients, also inserting education. So for instance, we made this Behind the Denim documentary, which was very good because it has this ironic twist into it.
Yeah.
We were not taking too serious.
You keep your brand identity of
Otherwise, we'll not be Diesel, you know.
Yeah.
So, and in that way, we have a very good reaction also from the farm, from the cotton field, until the second-hand retail store. So it's a long process, but if we make a text explaining A to Z, what does it mean, cotton, regenerative, blah, blah, man, you will never get succeed. But if you make it in a very fast way, immediate to understand, within the DNA of the brand, is good, you know. That's how we approach it.
All right. Daniel, what are the biggest challenges for you when designing for recyclability as opposed to durability or repairability? And are they compatible?
First, I want to go back to what Courtney was saying, which was also an eye-opener for me because I had to study about Courtney's work before coming. So that was very interesting also for me because we all have to learn more going forward. And I totally agree that this kind of monomaterial obsession that I also had and that the customers had is evolving. So I think that's the first point we can say.
Interesting. Okay.
But when we talk about monomaterial and I think about Courtney, I was thinking about polycotton and something. So we're talking mostly about the fabric, I think. But if we look at a garment, a garment is made out of, like, let's say, especially performance or even rucksacks or equipment is not made only out of fabric. As far with my experience I would say the material, like in the sense of fabrics and membranes, I think that's not so difficult nowadays. You can build, I mean, whenever we do something, we build from scratch. So we put the membrane that works with the yarn and the fabric, so we know what we are doing. And of course, parallelly, we try to make these things with the trimmings, because I was looking for the monomaterial solution. But if you look at strong clips or stuff, they're all made out of POM. I don't know if people know POM, which is acetal, which is molecular different material, obviously, than polyester, polyamide, or merino wool. So for me, that's the main focus, actually, to get the trimmings right.
Yeah.
And in the past, the most difficult to get right were zippers, because zippers had like 3 components with them. But even this now, we have now zippers which are monomaterial, because you can't recycle, and I think even on polycotton, if you have some POM, acetal, or zippers on them, you will not be able to extract only the chips or the yarn that you want. So
well, they're
for
cut
me
away. Yeah, they're pre-processed.
Yeah.
You're adding steps.
It makes your life more difficult. So we are trying to make still monomaterial if we have which everything is based, let's say, on like polyester or polyamide, then it should be like monomaterial. But I think more for natural ones or first layer and second layer, that's more easy probably for the polycotton. So yeah, to finish, I think it's the trimmings that are the most difficult to get right.
Yeah. Do you agree, Andrea, that when we're designing for recycling, so it's not necessarily the primary goal, but it's in the mix of how a designer works, how do you manage the trims, the rivets, the buttons? What's the thinking there at Diesel?
Lately, we have been going on the path of monomaterial.
Yeah.
You have to talk to yarn maker, you have to talk to all the suppliers. The problem that they have in order to make a step forward with the recycling or making a product more circular. So listening to them, they all will tell you, go for monomaterial,
Yeah.
always.
It's the
So
easy
that's the easy
solution.
way. It's the easy
But
way.
it's not the
fine.
best product.
It's
right?
not the best product. It's probably not even the best sold one. So you have to be careful also to the selling point, because if you don't sell nothing, man, nobody will do monomaterial, So,
Yeah.
but every brand should test it. Every brand should know that the trims, as an aesthetic, if you have a problem with the zippers, let's find the zippers that has the same component, maybe, of the overall garment that doesn't that is not too different, but kind of can combine with the final aesthetic that you want, and that becomes a successful product. That's the biggest challenge, but that's where the creative people should work better with the supplier, because if I am in the middle, I'm an R&D, I have to get the mood board from the designer,
Yeah.
and I have to go to the supplier, that I have to go talk to another supplier, which is a yarn maker at the end, and maybe it comes back a product. Imagine how much time passed now, so it's a long time, and go back to the designer. The designer doesn't like that. I have to repeat everything.
Yeah.
Why cannot just the designer go to the supplier? Why not? I mean, it's good that you are here. Actually, it's
Well,
very good.
yeah.
Thank you very much. But, you are 3 people in 1,000 people, so I think this is very abnormal. So you have to understand that the solution to make this faster, this circular mindset, it's not only because a brand marry the final, I don't know, sustainability report at the end of the year. No. It's the whole system underneath, like the roots of the tree that we are, that needs to work within the finalization to the consumer like or not, So I think this is it's very long, but it can be very fast. Just be one action.
Yeah. Well, this is a good transition to my third topic here, which is collaboration across the value chain. And this is the best place to talk about it, because there are a lot of people from different stages of the supply chain that are here. So when Andrea, this is a question for Andrea and Danielle, maybe Danielle can begin, is how important is collaboration with suppliers in developing smarter products? And so in smarter, I mean more sustainable and more desirable.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't have the perfect answer, obviously.
Don't.
How can I say? I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty the older generation, so I have started before computers were there. We are still drawing by hand, and I used to work for fashion people. I used to work for Martin Margiela, and at Martin Margiela there were no computers or no nothing, and we had scissors, and we were sewing things together and putting the garments with tea bags and washing machines. So it was more, let's say, a very different approach. What I want to say is, at the time, you would experience with your brain and your hand and would draw and you construct something because there was cashmere over there, there was denim, and your brain would think, and then you would put it through paper. I think nowadays you can't be creative without getting knowledge about everybody who is around here, for example, being fed by all those very creative, also industrial people. So I always start, actually, it's again like tailoring, I start with the bits and pieces first.
Well, Margiela was like artisanal, right?
Yeah, very. But I think even the industry now is like, there is some artisanship or craftsmanship, and I think that Andrea knows much more than me about it, because diesel is lots of treatments, surface, pigments, colors. This is very artisan in a certain way, even if now we have industrial translations of it.
Yeah.
So where I want to head is, I think before you start creative process, you should look what's out there. I give you one very interesting example. In 1995, Issey Miyake would work on a concept was called APOC. That was warp knit, and which was leather-proof. So every knit was closed by a knot, so you could cut the garment wherever you wanted. But Issey Miyake at the time made this, I think it was on Japanese artisanal machines. And there's one guy I particularly like who is at Performance Days, is Cesare Citerio from Cifra.
Cifra, yeah.
And he translated this artisanal thing into a 2-layer warp knit. I hope I use the good terminology here. And he brought it to the next century. So before you draw a new tennis dress, they have a tennis dress that was shown in Roland Garros by Lacoste, not
Yeah.
made by me, so nothing to do with me. And if Lacoste wouldn't have known what Cesare can bring, they could never design this dress. So I think we should first look what is out there, and those people inspire us to make something.
Yeah.
Because we are not at all cutting fabric and putting them into the sewing machine anymore.
Yeah, we're learning across the different suppliers. Andrea, what a collaboration across the supply chain. How important is that in moving the needle?
Extremely important. I mean, we are here at this fair. You must talk to the innovator, to the supplier, to find solutions. So,
And learn about possible new solutions, I guess.
And possible new solutions. And by the way, that's a good example, Daniel. I think it's beautiful when things starts head, hands, and after making into a more industrialization way. But that's just a time that you need to spend on having an idea, working with a supplier, maybe from an artistic point of view at the beginning, artisanal point of view after, and an industrial point of view later on to make a business out of it.
So you can have several talents, those that can imagine the idea and those that can translate it into a larger scale.
Anyway, the designer is not born a genius. A designer is definitely a dreamer, but the ends or the fit of whatever product we come out from someone else. Okay? If that someone else become the designer, imagine the revolution that this work can be, So I think that somehow if we give the knowledge to the supplier, thinking from ahead of the designer, something beautiful will come out within a cost safe, within logistic safe, within a creative way that can enhance the next generation of product and also like appearance of how we're going to be dressed in the future. So I think that this shortening the distance between creative people and supplier, I hope I don't say too much now that you go home bored, but I will repeat it all the way until we see some results, And actually there is no ego between making something, right? But if you give the preference to ego, then you're dead. You don't create. Look how fucked up is the industry of fashion now. So I think this is very delicate moment that we need to reason without ego, but more into the newer approach to convince your clients to buy you back. Okay.
Do you think there's not enough collaboration within the industry today that we could do better?
Okay, here is a performance, so definitely the performance is a must. But so the sport activity, the outdoor, this whole industry. But when you talk about fashion, sorry, there is a big distance. So I think that it's good to be here because you see actually direct contact. This is actually very beautiful.
Yeah.
You can see also designer present here, so that's even better. But in the fashion industry, it's a little bit more distance, yes.
Siloed, yeah. Courtney, there have been some recent announcements of collaborations across the industry at Cirque with Lensing, with H&M. How is that? Does that add to the conversation, a learning experience between? What do you get out of it, and what do you see as the future?
Yeah, I think at Cirque, collaboration is key, not only with the brands that we service, but also in the supply chain. So speaking of the H&M, Lensing, Unito launch, that was related to a project exploring textile waste in Bangladesh. And that was really coming together of 3 different groups to create a product to explore a solution to the textile recycling industry. I think another, one of my favorite points about collaboration in the next gen space is that, especially for startups and for people on a smaller scale, it's really challenging a lot of times for brands to approach new ideas And what we did along with Fashion for Good is that we created this thing called a fiber club, where 4 brands, there was Everlane, Eileen Fisher, Zalando, and Bestseller, they all kind of conglomerated their resources, and we worked together with supply chain partners like Burla, Arvind. We consolidated fiber production, so not everybody had to take the risk of trying something new. I mean, that's scary to brands. Like, you're trying something you haven't done before. Let's lower the risk for the brand, but also make it workable for the supply chain. That's the kind of collaboration that Cirque is really all about, trying to make something that looks good, but also is easy for a brand to take on and isn't too much risk. And that's really where collaboration is key, I think.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree because it's a humongous task that we have if you want to go from linear to circular business models in any case. So, well, where are the biggest disconnects for you? Or is it a language problem between creatives and technicians? Is it a fear of whatever? Or is I mean, cost is always an issue. I don't know what.
Yeah, I mean, usually for a next-gen fiber like Cirque, it's easy to get in the door with sustainability, right? The first people we're talking to is sustainability. They're about the cause, but then you start going to design. It's critical that you have good-looking fabrics. So that's a big part of my role. I'm creating fabrics that are aesthetically pleasing, that shows we have a good product, but it's also attractive. And then on the last side, critical conversation around price, then you get to production people, and they're like, how much is this going to cost?
Yeah.
So it's all about creating a package to service the different needs of the business. And we're trying to meet all those goals as a textile-to-textile recycler. But like you said, it's very challenging for new startups from a price perspective. And that's where people in our industry are really relying on brands to make that next step, to really invest in textile-to-textile recycling and create a circular economy, because it is a new industry and we really do need the support of brands at a large scale.
Andrea, how much do you have a take-back program? How much circularity exists in the group today?
But we have, set the second hands program. That is becoming vintage now because actually in CompressCom in Las Vegas, we launched the vintage program, which is very interesting because once you talk about second hand, it's one thing. So once you talk about vintage, I mean, starting from 1978, we start to have a lot of good vintage stuff that has diesel tag.
I can imagine. Yeah.
By the way, if they're vintage, they're still beautiful to dress. So that means that the cotton that was done back in the days and the made in Italy that was done back in the days, wow, it pays back the fact that they're still alive today and they're still beautiful today. So thank you for this, because we believe a lot on take back. We believe a lot, even though to enhance a mentality is taking a little bit of time. But I mean, we also have our rules inside the criteria for every new product that we make.
Yeah.
So it's important to say that we want to always have the same quality, but criteria is very important, because if you don't have a standard criteria of whatever product you go out in the market, then your product is not responsible enough. So we have this criteria. Every year we declare how much percentage compared to the previous year. And I think our R&D actually and our design team, they're good. They want to prove that they can make it more, so
Yeah.
we love to push even more, but anyway, it's just a matter of time. But in any case, it's something that we're very proud also. And since I talk about this, but once you put those percentage to other brands that have a much lower percentage of responsible product, you start a competition, which is a very good, positive competition between brands. Whoever is going to arrive to 100 is not going to win nothing, but that's when the fun starts to create. And that's, I think, where the challenge is to become immediately to 100, to after finally start to reason with the mindset of circularity or lower impact material and treatments and trims and so on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's the designing for circularity. I find it sometimes a little bit scary because you want to design for longevity, which is what you mentioned in the beginning, eventually for repairability, and so the recyclability is obviously important, but it's not easy. I mean, where do you stick that in your design process?
Sorry, Sophie. I think, have you been to the Textile Recycling Expo also in Brussels?
The Recycling Expo, no, I didn't.
It's
yeah.
actually, it's amazing to see that in a super boring fair,
Yeah.
there is so much energy. That's
Okay.
amazing, That means that the recyclability of product, of cotton, for instance, we have a cotton eater in our holding. The length of the fiber is exactly the same as the raw material. So you know what? I show you two fabric. One is recycled, one is virgin. Nobody will know the difference. So that means that what are we talking about?
There's no
So
problem.
you will have the same quality, the same aesthetic of the product when you go to the final consumer. So I think it's just a matter of meeting the standard, meeting the quality, meeting the right aesthetic, and that's done.
Okay, simple enough.
I was like, can I add something to that? I like to think that circularity isn't one size fits all. Like, we shouldn't let progress get in the way of, or perfection get in the way of progress. There's some products out there that today that are ready for circularity. Basic tees, maybe we're not there in laminated jackets, Maybe that has too many trims. But there are products in most people's lines that are ready for circularity. And if we're looking for perfection, we got to understand that everybody's making advancements in the industry. Textile to textile recyclers are making advancements. Trims people are making advancements. Everybody's working towards the circularity goal, and maybe what you can't recycle today, you'll recycle 5 years from now. And there's some path to get there, but we just have to be willing to take that step with some portion of our product line that's
Right.
ready for textile to textile.
That's a good point. I like that. I can see that time is flying, so maybe we should open the conversation to our audience. Charles, or what's that? I have to read this? Ooh.
You've got one virtual question so far, but whilst you're considering that, I now look at the audience and say, they're here. We've got some good stuff on stage. If you want to ask a question, stick up your hand and I'll come to you. But
All
Sophie,
right.
do you want to start off?
So I'll
the
start with
committee?
this, yes. So what kind of skills do designers nowadays need to be attentive to the complete circular system and opportunities? And do you see new requirements translated in universities or on the educational side? Do we need to train people differently? Thank you, Nikki.
You want to go?
I think there's not one reply. I think there's several things. The best school is performance days.
Okay.
I think that we should start where we are, honestly. I learned so much here already, even if I'm quite advanced in my professional life. So I think this might apply also for younger generations. So I think going to fairs, to the rare fairs which are left. Of course, university would be great. And it always makes me think, not against schools and university, but it's a little bit like politics. It's always coming a little bit late. So I think university is great to teach you something, but the time the professor knows about it and talks to his audience, the revolution has already been faster. So this is, I think you need to be very agile. So I think maybe in the universities you can teach more like principle and open-mindedness and have a mindset. But on the reality things, I think is where you go to the fair and are confronted to what happens in the next 2 or 3 years. I'll just give you one last example to that. 80% of the people who here make one mistake. They show the garments from their existing customers, but actually when we look at those garments, they are already 3 years old.
Yeah.
And if Andrea looks at something, he doesn't, apart if you are interested in vintage continuously, I'm sure Andrea wants to know what happens in the 2 years to come. So I would invite people here to more show what they think is coming in the next 2 or 3 years instead of showing samples or what they have done last year or something.
In the past.
So to finalize about that, I think it's a mix of learning into university and teaching yourself and go make apprenticeships in great brands or in great organizations like yours. I think that's like triple education.
Okay.
Sometimes it's the merchandising team that also predict what has been sold last year. So whatever you do in 2 years will be so old, 3 years old, then probably you will affect after in the final sales. So we have to always careful that even the linear system, fashion system that we have is very old school. So I don't know, I think I would love if one day we change the system, because the question was about the designer, what a
The
designer
system,
should-
yeah, what do designers
So
need to know?
in any case, the designer should be always the eye that sees from supplier until the store.
Yeah.
The eye of the product, the eye of how it's made, the eye and also the voice of how it should be made. This is mandatory. Designer have a creative head and should be always even explain better what does it mean beauty, you know? So if a supplier understand beauty, you will only have beautiful product. You will not have one yes, one not, maybe, you know. So you will only have beautiful product because it has been trained by the beauty of the mind of the designer. So, and I think also the system, I'll now go back to the linear system that we have. It should be not linear anymore. It should be at least triangular. There should be retail, there should be supplier. Retail, supplier. But the eye should be only from the design team. So, and I'm not saying about fast fashion, because this is exactly what fast fashion do. But if we find a beautiful system that works within clienteling, what the clients want, what your consumer wants, what the consumer love, the experience, the brand, within product, then the retailer should go to the supplier, ask, I want this, always with the eye of the designer. So if there is a new system like this, I think, this is just I say
Hypothesis.
hypothesis, okay. I think this linearity, this very old school way of working, man, it will be a new world, you know. So I hope that so the designer will not be just the guy or the girl that makes the mood board, and after there is all the rest. I hope that the designer or the creative office is a service office that, with a beautiful mind, satisfy the client within the supplier algorithms.
Yeah, well, we need good design at every single level. Fiber, trimming, zippers, and fabrics, of course, but then someone to put them into shape.
Can I ask a question? I can go to the other side if that's necessary. I want to ask a question to Andrea, actually.
Go ahead.
It was very interesting what was just said, and I wanted to come back to the word speed. You know, I mentioned 3 years old, 2 years in advance, and I would like to listen more to what Andrea has to say about the speed between, you said fashion is very different to performance, and I think I agree. I just want to learn a little bit more from you. So when we work, for instance, for performance brands or sports brands, they have a plan. Let's say they look for materials, they plan in advance, they talk about quantities, and as a caricature, I might say fashion people, they're always in a rush, and you have to do something in like 3 weeks' time. And I think speed is also sometimes the enemy. Like to that, how do you live that in like the fashion business? How would you say the speed is that sometimes also difficult for you because you must have several collections and go fast all the time?
So when you ask me this question, I have to ask you, what does it mean speed? Okay, because in any case, I wear the same pair of 5 pockets that probably 30 years ago I would wear. You know? So what is speed? It's beautiful, it's black, it's a little bit washed out. I still wear it today. So I think the carryover product is not speed. It's a continuous product that, like a white t-shirt, like a black t-shirt, like any commercial product from every brand has. So I think this should be being almost the bread that you buy every day, you eat every day. should always have the same ingredient or same aesthetic or same taste.
Okay. This is
After
what.
there is
Sir-
the top of the pyramids, the showpiece, the fashion show, the whole
Yeah.
gallery, artistic. Okay, fine. It's just this more in terms of business, you know. So it's you have to think about that. You should always go to a gallery inside the store, but in the end, when you don't buy the artwork, you buy the piece of pen or the book of the artist. I think this is the way that with the fashion system also should be approaching, and speed. Now that in your answer is a speed that maybe a designer have for a certain limited amount of time, not forever. You understand? So if the designer have just not a speed but a slowness, man, how fast can I arrive if next week you change idea? You know, so that's the key, you know.
Yeah. But that goes back to what Courtney was saying, that probably a certain portion of our wardrobes, all of us, is already monomaterial and pretty much recyclable. And those are the T-shirts, the jeans that are cotton, and mostly cotton anyway. So what you're saying, there's like a hierarchy. So there's a big swath of product that is not going to change much, that you'll still be wearing 30 years from now, and that you'll still feel good and look good in as well. And then the small portion is the price
Wow.
we have to pay when we want to be fashionable, when we want to have a
mean-
bold message or something.
You want to dream always, you know. So,
Yeah, of
and that's
course,
good.
yeah.
You need an idol, a beautiful, I don't know, pop star that you want to be, and you want to be like that. You dress like that. But sincerely, I think also the education of the consumer should be implemented in school. Because if I know that I'm wearing a cotton T-shirt, I know that I am wearing a cotton T-shirt.
Yes.
But if I know that someone is wearing a cotton T-shirt and I want to wear a cotton T-shirt, I don't know nothing about cotton, you know? So I think this is something that even in school we can start to teach. I'm not talking about like superior high school. Like I'm talking about kindergarten,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So that's easy after. It will be easy to buy, easy for the consumer to be loyal to a company, you know? So
Okay. Any more questions from the audience?
Sophie,
Charles.
Sophie, we've got one question at the back. We're about to run out of time.
Oh my
so
gosh.
this is the last question.
Okay.
So if we could have 1 minute answers.
Thank you, speakers, for the presentation. Andrea, one thing you mentioned that resonated with me was the recycled staple fiber, which is almost identical to the virgin cotton fiber. And I'm from the company Data Color. With our instrumentation for color management, we can even see that the color is the same and dyeing processes can achieve similar color. But at the end of the day, sometimes the conversation comes back into the purchasing department saying, okay, maybe this cost is a bit higher, maybe the dye process takes a little bit longer. Where do we take the risk of maybe investing more in the sustainable process for circularity versus continuing with cheaper processes, which bring more profit into a brand, into the company?
define cheaper, because I don't understand. I mean, is it cheaper?
Take the quickest definition, otherwise you're off stage.
Sorry. Okay, don't talk anymore. No, I think is it always expensive if it's a limited amount? It will be normal cost if it's a normal amount of buying, because buying power. Because if you have only few selected products inside your collection, of course it will be costing more money. But if all the product is made within that mindset, circular mindset, then even the production will have a certain amount of quantity that allows to have a less cost and more marginality in that case.
Thank you.
Yeah, scaling is the solution.
Scaling, yeah.
No, okay. Is that it, Charles?
Unless Daniel or Courtney want to add to that, because you are both centers of knowledge.
Well, I think we all know that price is definitely a challenge for most brands, and we're quite aware of that as a textile-to-textile recycler. We know we're going to you, and everybody is pressed. Everybody's pressed for margins. It's a tumultuous time. but we really do need that long-term support to reach that price parity. It's just like where bottle was, 10 years ago. Bottle recycled polyester was more than virgin polyester. We're seeing that same trend in the market now for textile to textile. Of course, there's a lot of levers that we're working on and different pricing models at Cirque to try to get to price parity. But ultimately, it's a similar situation to bottle. We do need to scale in order to bring that price down. And it really depends on brands within the industry signaling to the suppliers in this room, like we want textile to textile waste. We only produce 1% of the materials used is textile to textile base. If we want to grow that portion, we have to have the commitments that will accept some price challenges initially to scale, just like we did with bottle.
Good point.
At Nike, there was an initiative called Regenerate, and there was like Regenerate a shoe, all these kind of things. And when you go to a factory, there's already some waste during the production. And I remember when I was working on the swimming goggles, I saw all this waste, and the factories were not that clean at the time. And I was asking, what do you do with all this waste? And they said, oh, we throw it away, and we have to pay for it, and so on. So we regenerated the waste and put it, let's say, something from the silicone here. We re-put it here, like to close. So we had zero waste at the time. And I got nearly killed by the factory director at the time because obviously that was more expensive. And I called my boss at Nike and I said, well, it's more expensive. What do we do? And he says, it's okay. We eat up the margin. And we did this for a year. And 2 years later, the factory director, who hated me, said, oh, we actually now have reduced the cost. So 2 years later, actually, and now they only work like this. This is like 15 years ago. So it's a beautiful story. So I'm happy to share this. But of course, it's not always happening like this. But I think sometimes we have to go through some process and have to pay a little more. And at the end, maybe it pays off, and we can reduce not only our impact, but also even the price.
Right.
So I think sustainability does not need to be expensive. It could be even cheaper or more price efficient, let's say.
Great closing point. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.